Welcome to a brand new, I guess you can call it segment or show, half show, whatever you want to call it. This is the Harvey Hour, fired up. This is going to be a Wednesday. I don't know how many times I'm going to be doing this, but as of right now, this is a Wednesday show in between Monday's Harvey Hour and Friday's Harvey Hour. This is the middle slot. So now I'm going to hopefully get shows going Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. My name is Nathan Harvey. I will be your host for today's episode of the Harvey Hour Fired Up. Let's get into our first topic. We are talking about what John Lynch, the 49ers GM, had to say at the owners' meeting. He was asked, what is the quarterback situation moving forward? And he basically talked about how Brock Purdy is the leader in the clubhouse to be considered for the QB1 position over Trey Lance and obviously over Sam Darnold. And that got me thinking, what exactly is going to happen with Trey Lance now? Because Brock Purdy, while yes, Brock Purdy played phenomenally, I think we could all talk about this. What is exactly going to happen with Trey Lance? First of all, let's talk about why the 49ers even decided to draft Trey Lance. Coming out of the 2020 season, they just came off of a Super Bowl run the year prior, and then the following year, they were dealing with Jimmy G's injuries again. Jimmy G could never stay healthy. I think that was the first reason why the 49ers even decided to go and draft Trey Lance. Now, they had some thinking to do because they moved heaven and earth to get to that number 3 spot. The number 1 pick to the Jaguars was always going to be Trevor Lawrence. I think that was set in stone from the very beginning. I don't think Trey Lance was ever really considered. I don't think Zach Wilson, for whatever reason, was considered except for the New York Jets. I think that makes a lot of sense. Mac Jones was an option that the 49ers were reportedly essentially going to be pushing for. But then it turned out that they're going to draft Trey Lance. I never heard Justin Fields to the San Francisco 49ers. I never heard that. So we were down to really, it was Trey Lance or it was Mac Jones. One of those two quarterbacks. And they decided to draft Trey Lance because I guess if you look at it, Mac Jones is very similar to Jimmy G, and they wanted to move in a different direction, a more mobile direction, and they were taking a chance on a guy who potentially had the biggest upside, but had the lowest floor because he was the rawest quarterback in the draft. I believe he only played, 6 college games? Maybe even less, maybe a tiny bit more. I'm not too sure of the number, but it was an incredibly low number of college football games. He comes in as the rawest quarterback, and they wanted to see how he works. He was in there for 2 games, 57% completion percentage, 600 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 picks. With a team, everyone complains. I've talked about this before, and I've gotten backlash for this. Without CMC. Well, what about Jimmy G's success without CMC? He made it to a Super Bowl, made it to an NFC title game without CMC. You still had George Kittle, still had Deebo Samuel. What about Brock Purdy? They draft Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, and it was supposed to be Trey Lance's team. That's what Kyle Shanahan said the previous season. So we're talking about the 2021 offseason going into 2022. He said that Jimmy G was basically done, and Jimmy G did his goodbyes, and he was essentially going to be out from the organization. And then when it came out that they needed a quarterback, they brought back Jimmy G in because they did not trust Trey Lance to take over the job, plus injuries. So what did they do? Trey Lance had an injury out of the second game. He lost against the Bears, which is, it's great. They drafted Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. So it was Jimmy G and Brock Purdy remaining after Trey Lance got his injury. And Jimmy G played very well. I don't care what people say. They only have that 10-game, 11-game winning streak, whatever they were on. Guess who started that winning streak? It was Jimmy G playing, as Jimmy G normally does in the regular season, pretty good. I know people don't like how he's not flashy or not mobile. He's a guy that wins a bunch of games. Winning matters in the league. Kyle Shanahan has a significantly better record with Jimmy G than without. So it's not exactly a pick-and-play offense because Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard, even I believe Hoyer was on the team, they aren't really starters in the league. So you can't throw in a random guy and have them operate the offense. But Brock Purdy has played a lot of college games. He's got that, adequate starter ability. So he was going to be able to come in and be successful, especially with the addition of CMC. I believe it was like a couple days before the Chiefs game where they got blown out by the Chiefs because Jimmy G can't really go up against Mahomes and beat him. Yeah, I believe he's lost to him twice, maybe more, in the Super Bowl and in the game this past season. So now the GM is saying that they want to go with they don't want to go with Trey Lance. They want to go to Brock Purdy as the leader of the organization moving forward. So what do you do with Trey Lance? You sign Sam Darnold to a contract. I guess that's because you want a comparable QB3 in case you end up with the same situation you were in the NFC title game this past season, where you need to put back out Brock Purdy with a UCL injury. He couldn't throw more than a yard. What I would do if I'm the 49ers, let's say Lamar does get traded, or he signs an offer sheet with another team and the Ravens don't match it. I think they should be very intrigued, the Ravens should be, in acquiring Trey Lance. Because it'll fit somewhat of the same offense they've been running. Trey Lance is a 6'4", 220-pound quarterback who's incredibly mobile. Now you add Todd Mankin, I believe his name is, the Georgia coach. I believe he's your OC. You put Trey Lance in that offense, I think Trey Lance could do okay. But Trey Lance so far with the 49ers has not been great. And you say, oh, sample size. He had a very, very small sample size, only started 4 games. What did people say the first game that Brock Purdy played in? The first game. Who the hell is this guy? Jimmy G went down and we felt all hope was lost. He comes in, throws a couple touchdown passes, and looks really good. That was after one game. After another game, this guy can play. He outplayed Tom Brady. Tom Brady we're talking about, the greatest quarterback of all time. Oh, but he had CMC, and he had George Kittle, and he had Deebo Samuel. CMC was there. Deebo Samuel he didn't have for most of the time. George Kittle, in honestly most games, was a no factor. 2 catches for 30 yards. Not really a major factor. So, good for Brock Purdy. I think he deserves the starting job. The only problem is you spent so much to get Trey Lance, I would really consider either moving off of Trey Lance when he still has a glimmer of value, even though teams don't exactly know what they're getting based on 4 games, even though I think it's pretty damn clear. Trey Lance ain't a great quarterback, and he needs serious refinement to be good. So what team will that be? I don't think it's the 49ers. The 49ers seemingly have given up on him. I would seriously try to get some trade value for it. I believe Pro Football Focus actually created a mock where Lamar gets traded and Trey Lance goes to the Ravens for, I believe, 2 second-round picks. That's not a bad trade. That's not a bad trade. You go with the guy who's better, and Brock Purdy, who went from Mr. Irrelevant to Mr. Relevant, rightfully so. He won 5 straight games in the regular season. Then he won the 2 playoff games to get to the NFC title game, and I just feel like the Eagles still would have won that game regardless if it was quarterback. Put in Brock Purdy. He works for you. He's a little bit more mobile than Jimmy G. The arms, you could say, oh, he throws the ball deep. No, he doesn't. You can look at the stats. He doesn't throw more deep balls. They have comparable arms. Should Jimmy G have taken more deep shots? Probably. We've seen him do it. It's not like he can't do it. I think Brock Purdy fits in this organization really, really well. It's just a question of, can you keep that Cinderella run going? Now, if he keeps it going, it's not going to be a Cinderella story anymore because this is the quarterback that Brock Purdy is. So I would just take a look at the situation you have with Trey Lance. I don't think Trey Lance is all that. I've had people tell me, my friends, Trey Lance is going to be so good. Look at his athletic ability. Look at his upside. His upside only comes out if you have proper coaching. He's had the opportunity, I think, a couple times. He's gotten hurt. This was his year to really show that he's a quarterback in the NFL, and he got hurt. I don't think he ever plays another game with the 49ers unless, if he stays, Brock Purdy gets hurt again. And that's the question of how healthy can Brock Purdy be after his elbow injury. I think we're going to be asking questions like that. I think 49ers are making a good move here. I think the next best move for the 49ers would be get off of Trey Lance because you spent so much on him, and the returns, you're not getting the returns I think you wanted from him. Go out, get some picks back, because you got a phenomenal defense now. You signed Hargrave from the Eagles. Great pickup. Your offensive line is still amazing. You still have CMC. You still got Elijah Mitchell. You have a great team. Put the quarterback, who's the best quarterback on your team, in a position to win, and you've done that. But don't carry around excess baggage. Don't be like the Jets, where your quarterback is not really that good and you're still saying you have faith in him. The fact that the Jets are still holding on to Zach Wilson and saying that he's going to be the future, or that they still have faith in him, it's the classic Jets. The 49ers should not do that. Some people probably even thought that they held on to Jimmy G for too long. Well, in that case, get off your worst quarterback, Trey Lance, and keep in your best one, Brock Purdy, and move forward. I don't think there's any reason to keep Trey Lance there unless you think he's your future. Then you would have made him QB1, because he's probably going to be back sooner than Brock Purdy. Because Brock Purdy, there's reports out that he may not even be ready for a training camp. So get Trey Lance the reps, I guess, and make him your QB1 if you think he's all that. If you really spent, I think it was 3 first-round picks to move up to that number 3 spot? Make him your QB1. I don't understand the purpose of keeping a guy who spent, heaven and earth to get, just to have him be behind Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the previous year's draft. I don't understand it. Let's go into our next topic, though. We're talking about the New York Football Giants. The owner of the New York Giants, John Mara, there was a certain situation where the owners' meeting, they brought up a number of scenarios or a bunch of new rule changes, and one of them was to make Thursday night football games flexible. What they did this year, you take teams or games out from that Thursday night football spot and put in a matchup that would have been on a Sunday or a Monday or whatever it is. I think, and first of all, he called it abusive, and I have more quotes here. John Mara, according to Dan Duggan, John Mara said that he's adamantly opposed to the proposal to flex games on Thursday night. Flexible scheduling, as it is really inconsiderate to our season ticket holders and to people who fill our stadiums every week. People make plans to go to these games weeks and months in advance, 15 days ahead of time. To say, sorry, folks, the game you're planning on taking your kids to on Sunday at 1 o'clock is now going to be on Thursday night. I mean, what are we thinking about? To flex a game back to Thursday night, to me, is just abusive, and I'm adamantly opposed to it. I have a serious problem with that. I understand that maybe people who spend weeks and months in advance to go to a game, first of all, I've been to a number of games. I make it the week before, maybe during the week. But I think the NFL is not going to put itself in a scenario like last year. Think about how many duds we had on Thursday Night Football. The Colts-Broncos game. They didn't score a touchdown. That was the most boring game. The announcers were half asleep. I was sitting there like, can we score points that's not a field goal? Good for your fantasy team if you had a field goal kicker that was on the Colts or on the Broncos. Good for them. They put up a lot of points. Well, not really. I believe it was, 12-9 in that game? But they didn't score a touchdown. The Jets-Jaguars Thursday Night Football game. Zach Wilson put up 3 points, got benched for Chris Streveler. It got so bad, the Jets fans were cheering not for touchdowns, not for sacks, for first downs. That's what they were cheering for a first down. That's how bad that game was. Now, preseason, it was supposed to be a great matchup. Zach Wilson coming off of 2 years ago, last 5 games, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. It was supposed to be the number 1 pick versus the number 2 pick. On paper, great matchup. But if we looked at the situation that the NFL was in, or at least the Jets were in at that time, Zach Wilson was playing terribly. Trevor Lawrence was pretty good. You flex that game out of Thursday Night Football because Zach Wilson was horrible at that time. Horrible. You put in a better game. I mean, we started off on a great note. I believe the first Thursday night game, I think it was Bills-Rams. The Bills crushed them. If it wasn't that game, then I think it was the first Thursday night game on Amazon Prime was, I could be mistaken, I believe it was Chiefs-Chargers. Chiefs-Chargers is a great matchup. Herbert and Mahomes go toe-to-toe in like every single game they play in. Now, Mahomes always gets the upper hand, but the games are very, very, very competitive. Put more games in like that. I believe, I think, I could be wrong about this. It may have been a Monday night game. I think the Bucs-Ravens was a Monday night game. I don't have it in front of me, the Thursday night schedule. I'm sure I'll bring it up. The amount of duds we had in Thursday night football was embarrassing. It was honestly embarrassing, and it was boring to watch. Amazon spent billions of dollars to get their Thursday night football spot, to acquire Thursday night football. They had such a big loss because the games were so bad. So the NFL, I guarantee you, should come in and say, hey, first of all, the NFL is a business. They're trying to make a lot of money, and they do bring in billions of dollars per season. They want to put the best games in prime time. That Jaguars-Jets game, the situation that each team, or at least the Jets were in at that time, you got to hide that at a 1 p.m. game. Zach Wilson was horrible at that time. I mean, the Colts and Broncos were okay before that. The Broncos looked bad, and the Colts were somewhat respectable. Kind of. That game probably should have got flexed out. The NFL is a business. You got to put your moneymakers in a position where the most amount of people could see it. That's just the way it is. I don't want to hear, oh my God, my team is now Thursday instead of Sunday. Or your team's Thursday, you got kicked out to Sunday. There's a reason. Your team is terrible. Your team is horrible. I don't expect the Patriots to play on Thursday. They're my team. They're not a great team. I don't want them to play on Thursday. I just don't. Do I want to see a Houston Texans, Cleveland Browns game if that was Deshaun Watson's return? The NFL wants to make a lot of money. They put in the Cleveland Browns and the Houston Texans. Honestly, I thought a pretty good Thursday night game would be Baker Mayfield's return to Cleveland, the Panthers-Browns game. If that was Thursday night, I think a lot of people would have tuned into that because Baker Mayfield is a very, very big figure in the NFL. The Panthers aren't really a huge market team. The Browns aren't really a huge market team. But with Baker Mayfield's persona, I think a lot of people were going to watch that game. And plus, if Deshaun Watson was there, I think it would have been huge. But he wasn't. Now, I think the Giants now. I think the Giants, talking about John Mara, I think the Giants should get flexed in if they don't have a Thursday night game. I think they should be in prime position to get flexed into a Thursday night game. Because I want to see Daniel Jones on the big stage with his new weapons, with Darren Waller, with Sterling Shepard back, with Isaiah Hodges back. All these great talents now that Daniel Jones has. The offensive line could still get shared up, but Daniel Jones, the Giants went out and got him some weapons. I would put John Mara and his team in a Thursday night game. I would, like I said, the NFL is a business. They're trying to make the most money. Put your best teams in a Thursday night game in a primetime spot so millions of people can watch it and not just generally regional coverage like a 1 p.m. game or sometimes even a 4:25 p.m. game Eastern time. They can only watch it regionally. That's what I'm saying. John Mara, to call it abusive and you could be adamantly opposed, that's your opinion. But to call it abusive and to back it up by saying that people make plans to go to these games weeks and months in advance, I don't really see people jumping on tickets obviously not season ticket holders because they get their tickets way in advance. I don't see, the average person who's going to games, I don't see them getting tickets like 4 weeks in advance or 2 weeks in advance. Generally, it's the week of or a couple days before the week of the game. So, and I think, honestly, from my perspective, right, I just said that I don't want the Patriots in a primetime game like a Thursday night game. But if we're talking about a big matchup here, or, I don't know, if you really like your team and you think your team's good, why not be on the primetime stage? Everything gets heightened up. That's what the NFL wants. I mean, primetime game, I'll take it. Everyone gets to see your team. Makes it easily accessible to those to the people that don't have a Sunday ticket or whatever. That's me though. I could be wrong. I think it's a little bit excessive to call it abusive and to you could be adamantly opposed. That's your opinion, but to call it abusive, I think that's a bit much, John Mara, but it is what it is. Let's get into our final topic. It's going to be a short show today, maybe even half hour. Let's get into the next one. The Packers GM, Brian Gutekunst, was at the owners' meeting, and he was asked about exactly what went down in the offseason between him, or at least the organization, and one Aaron Rodgers. And I have some quotes here. So according to Gutekunst, the Packers tried to reach out to Rodgers on multiple occasions. He said, quote, a lot of attempts and went through that, but at the same time, again, we were always looking out for what's best for the Green Bay Packers. Our inability to reach him, talking about Aaron Rodgers, or for which this isn't even English, our inability to reach him or for him to respond in any way. There we go. I think at that point, I had to do my job and kind of reach out to other teams and understand that a trade could be possible and see who was interested. Remember what Aaron Rodgers said on the Pat McAfee show? He likes direct communication. He likes to be open and honest. That doesn't really sound like Aaron Rodgers. He loves people to be open and honest and direct to him, but if he's not responding to them, it's very interesting. And I was watching a lot of sports shows, and one of them brought up a really good point. Pat McAfee asked, Did you realize what was going on? He said, oh yeah, I checked my phone, and I saw that the Packers were openly shopping me. Well, you kind of ghosted them, went into the darkness, and went in 90% retired. Then you come out. I don't ever see you making the chance to communicate with them. It seemed like they were trying to communicate with you, and you weren't responding to them. Aaron Rodgers likes to play with his words a little bit. He loves to play with them. Vaccinated, immunized. He said he was immunized, and it came out that he didn't actually get the jab. Demand list, that he said he never made a list of demands, although the report was wish list. He takes it a little bit higher to an extreme, so technically he's right, because it wasn't a list of demands. It was a wish list. Players that you would like to have, not demanding to have. But the way Aaron Rodgers, I would assume, operates is, yeah, can you get me all that talent? I would love, hint, wink, wink, to get that player, to get these players to make me more comfortable when I come here. Or in this case, if he comes here. Talking about the New York Jets. I feel like this is classic Aaron Rodgers. I'm not surprised that he didn't reply to the Packers or even really reach out. Apparently, according to Brian Gutekunst, didn't even reach out. Kind of just realized I believe the GM said that he got told through an agent, through Aaron Rodgers' agent, that he's looking for a trade. So this direct communication is completely BS. Aaron Rodgers would love direct communication when it's coming to him, not giving it back to them. It's funny how that is. So, step up. And he also said that, I found it very interesting that how the Packers apparently are not even looking for a first-round pick. I found that surprising. They said that a first-round pick doesn't necessarily mean, if let's say they don't get a first-round pick, the first-round pick isn't necessarily holding things up. Well, there were a lot of reports that they were asking for 1 or 2 first-round picks. So could this trade pick up now where Aaron Rodgers actually goes to the Jets sooner than expected? Maybe. Probably. It should. But will it, though? So I think the Packers, again, are trying to, wring out every bit of value Aaron Rodgers still has left over. I find the situation very, very interesting because the Jets are literally going to loan him for a year. And I think there was a report out saying that that's what's holding up the Jets part of this trade is they need to create a conditional pick where if Rodgers does not play out his contract, that draft pick, let's say it's a second conditional. The conditions would be if Rodgers plays, that's a second round pick, or if he retires, it drops down to a 5th or whatever. I think that's really interesting because the Packers are saying, well, he's technically on for a 2-year deal. His contract is 2 years, $100 million left over. And the Jets saying, yeah, but he just went into his darkness retreat 90% retired. 9-0. So how do we know he's not going in to this offseason saying, I'm now, well, if I was 90 last year, I'm 100% retired? How are we not thinking about that? And the Packers are like, not our problem. Not our problem. You want him, you got to take all of his baggage. And good for the Packers. Good for the Packers. Now the question is, will this blow up in their face if the Jets do what I think they should do and target Lamar Jackson and say, hey, we'll still love to take Aaron Rodgers, but if you don't allow us to make this trade on our terms, we're going to go get a guy who's more than a decade younger. And it'll cost about half if you want to put, or Aaron Rodgers costs half. He would cost double, but he's also more than a decade younger. And I think at the moment is more talented than your quarterback, Mr. Green Bay Packers. That's where I think the Jets should take back the leverage and say, hey, we would love to do a trade with you. We would love to take Aaron Rodgers off your hands. But there's a guy who's a decade younger and right now is more talented than the quarterback that you have, that you're trying to get rid of, that you don't like anymore. And you'll have to deal with them if we follow through on getting one Lamar Jackson, which I think should be their plan 1A, or I guess 2A, if their original plan A is Aaron Rodgers. It's classic Jets. It's the classic Jets move. Have a quarterback or get a quarterback that isn't really going to propel you anywhere when there could be better ones out there. And by the way, they're still holding on to Zach Wilson. And I think even if they got Lamar Jackson, I'm just spitballing here, on morals, I think they would still keep Zach Wilson as a number 2. Bad idea. Bad idea. Get something out of him. Even if it's a 7th round pick, get something in return for the mistake. I never understood that with the Jets. From the very beginning, it seemed like the Jets set in stone Zach Wilson was their number 2. Never understood it. Never understood that at all. Why Zach Wilson was the, chisel in stone, your number 2 pick. I think the Packers, depending on how the Jets approach this, if they're still stubborn and saying that Rodgers is their plan A and they're not worried about a plan B, the Packers, I think, still have all the leverage. And also, I didn't feel very good about what LaFleur came out and said today when he was asked about Jordan Love. He said we got to temper our expectations. I did not like to hear that from the head coach, that your quarterback, you're replacing Aaron Rodgers. I understand. Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer. First ballot Hall of Famer. Enormous talent. Phenomenal arm. I don't understand how he throws the ball like 50 yards on his back foot. I don't understand that. But you're replacing him with a guy who you had hope in. He's not a Mahomes, but he's not terrible like a Zach Wilson. Otherwise, if he was as good as Mahomes or Burrow or Allen or whatever, Trevor Lawrence, you would have been off Aaron Rodgers and you wouldn't have given him the extension. And if he was as bad as a Zach Wilson, or I'm not even going to say, no, Mac Jones is not bad situation. Or I think even Ryan Tannehill, I would say, yeah, if he was as bad as a Sam Darnold, for instance, I think they would have been begging. I think they would be begging Aaron Rodgers to stay. Please, Aaron Rodgers, we'll do it another year. We'll finish out your contract, please. But Jordan Love, right now, he's in between, I would say, options. If you talk about the best quarterbacks out of 32, he's probably somewhere between 15 and 22, 23. He's not god-awful, but he's not there. And honestly, that's the difference between, once again, Trey Lance and Jordan Love, or Brock Purdy. In the games where Jordan Love played, no one said, ugh, I don't like what I'm seeing. He went into Arrowhead as a starter for that game because, ironically, Aaron Rodgers got COVID, and he played okay, not great, but he played okay. Then he comes in the Eagles game. I think he throws 6 of 9 for over 100 yards and a touchdown. Now you get the ball rolling a little bit here, and he looks much better in practice than he originally did. I think, honestly, the Packers, I think their over-under will, I don't know if the actual over-under wins are out yet. My guess would be they're going to be somewhere between the 7.5 to 8.5 over-under range. Because could Jordan Love do what Rodgers did last year? Yeah. Aaron Rodgers looked pretty bad. I think everyone can say that. He looked slightly above average. But at Aaron Rodgers standards, 1 year removed from being a back-to-back MVP to make him now a 4-time MVP, he was bad. But in the overall scheme of the NFL, slightly above average. Slightly. Not much. Slightly above average. I do think that'll wrap it up for us. The first Harvey Hour Fired Up episode. I appreciate everyone who stopped by to watch. This will probably be a Wednesday thing. It's going to be a short show. But I thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure you tune in on Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, for a full episode of the Harvey Hour. This is just a short thing to get the news in between each episode of the Harvey Hour, so it's not a Monday to Friday. We can have some sort of middle place Monday, Wednesday, Friday now. So I'm pretty sure I will see all of you there Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. But I will see you Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Introducing video podcasts on Spotify.
Transform your storytelling into a show everyone can watch
or listen to.
Easily upload your video through Anchor, Spotify's free podcast creation tool.
So whether you're showing off a new recipe,
interviewing an exclusive guest,
or uncovering the next mystery,
you can now reach a whole new audience with Spotify.
Podcasting just became more than audio.
Create with Anchor, watch on Spotify,